So on June 9th this year, our organization, Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center, organized a one-day event in New Jersey, focusing on the human rights issues of the Mongolian people in China, or we normally call Southern Mongolia. So the topic of the conference is continuing human rights violation of the Mongolians in China, a case study of bilingual. The event was organized by Southern Mongolia Human Rights Information Center with the sponsors of several other organizations based here in the New York and New Jersey area, including the Mongol American Cultural Association, Chinggis Khan Memorial Foundation, the Mongolian Culture Center, Inter-Mongol Network, Mongol Heritage Foundation, Kalmyk Brotherhood Society, Buryat Association Inc., and Kalmyk Project New York. So also representatives of Southern Mongolia, Tibet, East Turkestan, and China, as well as human rights activist scholars, and the writers from Japan, Mongolia, Sweden, Canada, and the United States attended the conference. And we had 4 panels, and the panelists representing Buryat, Kalmyk, and Hazara Mongolian communities were also invited to speak on the human rights condition of their respective nations and territories. So the 4 panels, the first one in the morning was focusing mainly on the overall human rights condition of Southern Mongolia, even though the conference name was specifically mentioning that the case study of Bengal. Bengal is a Mongolian region of Western Mongolia. We normally call Western Mongolia, which is part of today's China, so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The reason why we picked this area is that this case is that the Bengal was the region where the last Mongolian school in Western Mongolia was recently removed or just eliminated by the Chinese authorities. Mongolian teaching school was eliminated by the Chinese authorities, and the Mongolian students were forced to either learn in Chinese or in schools in the region, or they just moved to other schools. So even though we mentioned that the case of Bengal, actually this conference also focused on touched upon many other human rights issues of Southern Mongolia, including cultural rights, human rights, like herders, protest, and Mongolian people struggle for maintaining their traditional way of life, and many other issues, including the political prisoners, and also the scholars and writers from Japan and Mongolia. They also touched upon the issues of China's oppressive policies, not only on ethnic policy, but also overall general oppression of China. Also, we invited some other representatives, including his eminent Venerable Arja Lobsang Rinpoche, director of the Indiana-based Tibetan Mongolian Buddhist Cultural Center. Ajahn Rinpoche he gave the keynotes speech and highlighting the importance of preserving native languages, unique culture and distinctive tradition of occupied nations, including Southern Mongolia, Tibet, and East Turkestan. Also, Ajahn Rinpoche urged the Chinese government to respect all kinds of rights of the so-called ethnic minorities of China, in accordance with not only the Chinese own laws and regulation, but also international human rights standard. So, as I mentioned earlier, the panelists from each panel presented the in-depth analysis and also detailed information about the human rights issues, in particular the rights of the Mongolians to use their native language. Because the reason why we picked this topic is that this is a very concerning and very pressing issue in Southern Mongolia, that the Chinese government has been eliminating Mongolian schools, Mongolian language institutions in not only in Western Mongolia's Bengal region, but also in Southern Mongolia since its Chinese government's takeover of Southern Mongolia in 1949. So in the first panel, for example, Dr. Sanjastan, president of Mongolian American Cultural Association, gave a brief history of the Bengal Mongolians, and also Mr. Dorje Hotla, founder of the director of Inter-Mongol Network, gave the detailed information about how the Chinese government is implementing its policies of eliminating Mongolian language in Western Mongolia's not only Bengal but also other areas in the region. So and then we also invited Mr. Shodruk Torgut, who is a native from Bengal region, who is now living in Canada. He was not able to join in person, but he joined the conference through Skype and introduced the situation of Bengal region specifically. And then also we invited representatives from independent country of Mongolia, including Mr. Mugbai Cholondar, who is a writer and journalist and human rights activist in Mongolia, who is really active in supporting and advocating the right of Southern Mongolians in Mongolia. So, and then we representatives from other countries, including 2 Japanese scholars from Japan and 1 Mongolian activist from Japan, also attended the conference. And for example, Mr. Kataki Toro, he is a very well-known writer and editor in Japan. He talked about the Chinese communist regime and the nature of communism. And also we invited Mr. Uchida Toshiyuki, who is the director of Office Mongolia and the author from Japan. And he lived in Mongolia and southern Mongolia, also visited multiple times in many other Mongolian regions, and it was very impressive that he spoke very fluent Mongolian and gave his speech in Mongolian, and he brought up many issues, including some well attitude of some independent country of Mongolia, citizens of independent country of Mongolia toward southern Mongolia, and with from his own experience. So it was very impressive that he brought up a lot of issues that we normally, as a Mongolians, do not realize. For example, he mentioned that he himself was regarded as a southern Mongolians in independent country of Mongolia, and then he was even mistakenly called by the some Mongolian citizens in Mongolia as Hoja, which is well, a term that citizens of Mongolia normally call the Chinese. So it was very interesting that to hear his view, and from his own personal experience. Also, during the another, I think it was the a third panel, United We Stand, was oppressed nations peoples. I think it's worth mentioning that representative from Tibetan organization, Mr. Nagwang Tarchin, who is the president of Tibetan Youth Congress of New York, New Jersey area. He also showed some video footage about some Tibetan activists who work to defend their right to use their native language in Chinese-occupied Tibet, and then who was sentenced to jail for defending this right, and also their human rights condition in general, which is very similar to that of the Southern Mongolians, and also we invited the U.S. program coordinator of the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO, Mr. Marvin Kometat. He was not able to make it in person, but he sent his video statement, and this organization is very active in promoting rights of the indigenous peoples or people who are not represented in the United Nations. So his message is very encouraging, and so other than this, it's also I would like to mention a couple of words about representative from our Mongolian communities, including Mrs. Darina Sanjayeva. She's the director of Boreat Association Inc. and manager of Altan Sisika Band. Darina also mentioned, brought up a lot of issues that are very similar to Southern Mongolians, including environmental issues and language rights of the Buryat people in Russia. And also another speaker, Mr. David Changazi, who is the president of Hazara Organization for Peace and Equality, or HOPE, based here in New York. he also gave the a very detailed situation of Hazara people in Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the issues they are facing, and their struggle for maintaining their tradition and heritage as a distinct people who lived in the area for centuries. In this conference, we also invited the representative of the Inner Mongolian People's Party, which is one of the most active political organization that is publicly advocating for the independence and self-determination of Southern Mongolia. And it is the president of Inner Mongolian People's Party, Mr. Dolgan Hatkin, was invited from Sweden, and also Mr. Sechint, who is a member of the executive board of Inner Mongolian People's Party. Also, we invited Mr. Tumen Ulji Boinment, who is a member of the executive board of Inner Mongolian People's Party, and also he is a Halman Hammet award winner, a dissident writer from Southern Mongolia. So these are the panelists that we invited to the conference. So this is the first of its kind of like conference and focusing on Southern Mongolian human rights issues particularly, and of course the Southern Mongolian Human Rights Information Center have been attending and co-sponsoring many other events, but this particular event is the first event that particularly specifically focusing on Southern Mongolian human rights issues, and the representatives and attendees, panelists are invited not only from here in the United States, but also from several other countries. So in this sense, this is the first international human rights conference that specifically focusing on human rights issues of the Mongolian people in Southern Mongolia. And this is also very unique in a sense that this conference not only consists of panelists, activists who are normally, like human rights activists or writers, but we also invited just community representatives here in the United States, in particular from New York and New Jersey areas. So and also we invited the representatives from friendly organizations and peoples, including Tibet and East Turkestan or Uyghurs, and including some Chinese activists as well.
Time really flies. One day seems to be too short for us to discuss all the important issues that we are facing. But I really would like to thank all of our speakers and panelists for the excellent speech and presentations and attendance, and for their active participation and wonderful questions and comments to make the discussion very lively and interactive. I believe we had a very fruitful discussion on various cases of human rights issues, not only of Southern Mongolia, but also of Tibet, East Turkestan, China, as well as our occupied nations of Buryat, Kalmyk, and Hazara. We observed that the participants are truly concerned about the human rights condition of Southern Mongolia and their respective nations and territories where people are still facing all forms of human rights violations, including denial of their right to their native language, right to the access to land, water, and other resources, right to practice their traditional way of life and maintain their distinct culture, and freedom of speech, press, and assembly. But on the positive side, from our very passionate discussion, we can observe that we Southern Mongolians, Buryat, Kalmyk, and Hazaras, Tibetans, Uyghurs, and Chinese also, are resilient, very resilient people, and very determined people who never give up hope and never give in to any form of oppression. Not only did we hear the voice of hope, optimism, determination, but also heard the voice of solidarity to support each other, to defend our common cause, and achieve our common goal for freedom, human rights, and human dignity. As Martin Luther King put it elegantly, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Without solidarity, without supporting each other, no genuine freedom can be achieved anywhere. Again, I truly appreciate your active participation and sense of responsibility and sense of solidarity. And I look forward to more follow-up discussions. And most importantly, I look forward to our true translation of our passion into action. Thank you.